Welcome back to Clean Classics. So this time we've got the 2A is now on its axles, on its wheels. We've got the rolling chassis done. So we'll go through what's next in store for that project. We've also had the metalwork back from Pioneer Sheet Metal. It's been laser cut and folded. A lot of it's on the shelves here. We've got some already fitted into the Series 1, and we'll go through what our process is when we get the first batch of metalwork for a project. So this week is really exciting. We're picking back up with the Series 1 project now that we've had all the metalwork arrive. So the first step in doing so is just trial fitting everything. This is the first batch of the system that's going to fit the Series 1. It's ever so slightly different. Same sort of architecture, but it's ever so slightly different from the Series 88 design. So we just get one off with the first batch, and we just make sure everything's, we've measured everything correctly, got it into the CAD right, and make sure everything's coming out true. So at the moment we've got the transfer box and the motor bolted in place with the rails. All of that's going pretty well actually. We're really happy with the way that's going in the first time. It actually brings me on to a great question that Jim on YouTube has asked. So Jim was asking about the transfer box, what ratio we use and why we use a prop shaft between the motor and the transfer box. Brilliant question. We love questions like this. Jim, you're thinking exactly along the lines that we are. To start with, the ratio we use is actually the 1.667 to 1 final drive ratio in the transfer box. This actually gets us a final drive ratio very close to the original Nissan Leaf drivetrain. Slightly taller gearing once you go through the bigger wheels. It's as close as we can get with all the components we've selected here. So yeah, it's the 1.6671 ratio we use. As for the prop shaft, we would love to just, as Jim suggested, bolt the Nissan Leaf motor straight onto the LT230 transfer box. The reason we haven't done that is because we simply can't. The diameter and size of the Leaf motor is just too big to fit. It clashes with the front nose on the diff. So the diff housing on the transfer box. So that wasn't an option. One of our very first prototype iterations was a direct drive system, but the alignment in terms of height meant we had to push the motor further forward in the engine bay, reducing space for batteries. So the prop shaft was sort of an inherent progression to actually push the motor further back in the engine bay, a bit lower, opening up a bit more space there to fit what we need in. In this system, most of the batteries sit under the seat box anyway. So we don't need a huge amount of space in the front, and that's for weight distribution. That's the fundamental answer. It was just packaging it more efficiently, and here we are. It's sort of it's been a big old process to get to this point. So here we've got a load of the bits that have come in from Pioneer. So as they come in, they're cut, they're laser cut, and they're folded all in their CNC machinery. I'm always amazed by how precisely these parts come together. I mean, sheet metal's a real dark art. I mean, if you zoom in on there, there's the way that's folded up from there into there. I'm very happy with things like that. Very satisfying. But yeah, so what we've got here is basically, we don't get it welded, certainly with the first one, because we just want the flexibility to move things if we've made a mistake. And we put a lot of work into making sure that it just goes in together, but with the first one, there's a lot going on with all these parts. It's, we expect there's going to be one or two little fettles, a few millimeters here and there, but you just want to get it right. So we'll tack things lightly to start with, then we'll fit them to the car. If there's a problem, we can then just grind that tack away, move something, even we might grind an end off and move it to different places, remake something on the extreme end of the cases. Most of the time it's just cut a little bit off there where it got a bit close to that engine mount. And then once we've got them tacked in position and we're happy they fit exactly how we are, we'll be ready to fully weld them, send them off for paint. During this process, Alfie will be involved coming up and down stairs. Once we've found an issue, even if it's just shaving a couple mil off here or there, we'll get it fitting. Once we're happy with that fitment, we'll get Alfie to measure that and straight away get it into the CAD so that we're ready for the next order, which will be a batch order. We'll order more at once. It's more cost effective and it's just less painful overall. And that's the beauty of sticking with one type of vehicle. that one of the sort of wish list goals on what that we've been looking at in the background with this system is that actually all of these battery boxes, which are slightly more compact than the ones that go in the Series 88, will also fit into the Series 88. We're not pinning all our hopes and dreams on it, but now we've got the metalwork in reality, we'll also just nestle it up into an 88 chassis and see what we need to do to adapt it. If we need some different weld-on brackets between the two systems or whatever, if we can make the core of the actual metalwork the same, that helps us in terms of, you know, just we only have to order one batch of things, and with a couple of other ancillaries that mean it fits to this car or the other. So that's what we got in the back of our mind when putting this system together. And actually, initial looks look like it's actually gonna fit quite well. So that'd be exciting. Yeah, so maybe we'll look at the front of the car where there's sort of some active progress going on. So here we are at the front of the Series 1. Obviously we had a look, the powertrain rails in, our dummy motor is in place now. What we've been looking at most recently is the fitment of our front battery box. And actually this is quite a good example. There's a couple of places our front cross member ended up. It's actually fitting, but it's just way too close on this engine mount. So we're gonna need to fettle a bit out of there to clear and potentially move it around for the future CAD so it's a little bit higher, a little bit further back, just to clear that space a little bit better. We like to be at, you know, have a clearance of at least 5 mil. You know, I mean, that's pretty close as it is with Land Rover tolerancing. 5 mil is sometimes touching, as we found out here. So there's that kind of, the more common thing that we might have to fettle is where the proximities just ended up a bit close. There's also some notes on this part here where I think this is actually a lot to do with the clearance of actually getting the mounting bolts in. We've had to do quite a sort of interesting, intricate design to actually pick up on existing mount holes that the chassis has. But anyway, this is a two-part that welds together, but we've got the notes on here. We need to trim 4 mil off of that bit just to make it all go together that much better. But they're the kind of things we're probably going to need to amend as we get into it. Sometimes it's oversights, other times it's just Land Rover variability, and it's always a learning process. But yeah, but it's a good example of what we're on about there. So, the Series 2A build, the front and rear axles are fully rebuilt and they're all back in now. It's had new swivel balls, seals, bearings, Ralco bushes, and they've all been shimmed up and set up correctly with the correct preload. And new shocks, new poly brushes throughout. As you can see, none of the shackle bolts and stuff are tight at the moment. You always want to make sure that you load the chassis before you tighten up all the suspension bolts, so that the bushes are in a neutral position in a loaded state. We've got a couple more bits to do on the front axle. One of the things we've got to do yet is put oil in them. For some reason, these are Rocky Mountain swivel housings because it's had a disc brake conversion done, and they don't have a level plug. So I've left the lock tabs unfolded at the moment on the top swivel pin, and I'll take 2 of those bolts out and then use one to fill the swivel housing up with oil, and then the other one will act as a breather for the air to come out through. So that's one of the next jobs. Get those swivel housings and axle casings filled up with oil. We've put the steering relay in, and the steering linkages have started to go in, and we're getting to the point now where we're going to
we're going to start doing the mock build with the bodywork and repair the bulkhead and make sure all the bulkhead fits correctly and the front end all fits and the bodywork all fits together before it then goes out for paint. So, same story at the back end of the Series 2A. The rear axle's been fully rebuilt, all the seals and bearings, wheel bearings, everything's been changed. I fitted new wheel cylinders and brake shoes, and they've all been adjusted and ready to go. All I've got to do now at the back end, you can see I've fitted a new brake lines. They're braided hoses, and I've just got to make up the hard lines between the wheel cylinders and the T on the back axle, and make up all new hard lines throughout the vehicle. Is one of the next jobs, and the calipers can go on the front, and then we'll be ready to get on with the bodywork.
So this is one of the things I've been working on this week. It's a sort of junction box or like wiring housing for the inverter that sits on top of the Nissan Leaf motor here in the front. And basically we've got 4 HV cables coming in. I've just put some scraps on here to kind of mock it up and test fit everything. The box itself has got an O-ring in the top and the bottom to keep it watertight. And then the 4 cables we've got coming in. We've got 2 from our top box, which are in circuit with all of our battery packs in the vehicle, and then the other 2 are coming from the Leaf PDM, which is the power distribution module. So that has the AC charger in, it has the DC to DC charger, which charges our 12-volt battery, and then also we'll be kind of incorporating that into our fast charging once we've got that up and running. So that's kind of it in place, in position on the vehicle, where the inverter sits with our conversion, and then our top box with all of our electronics in will go just above it. So there's a nice O-ring in the top here to keep it all watertight. The Leaf inverter actually already has an O-ring on it on the bottom, so that kind of seals it in between, and then the lid is currently being 3D printed now, which we're going to test fit on the top, and then these are going to be sent off to be either machined or SLS 3D printed for the final product, so they're nice and watertight.
As you can see, the bulkhead for the 2A build is back from the powder coaters, and they've just put a quick coat of primer on it for us to stop it going rusty. So we're just about to start with the repairs on that. Before I start with the repairs, I've just dry fitted it to the chassis just to make sure it's not distorted too much and still fits on the chassis. I'm actually going to make up a jig for it so that I can carry out all the repairs and ensure that it still fits afterwards and doesn't get distorted by the heat of the welding or anything like that. So we've got new bulkhead feet going in both sides. As you can see, the footwells are completely shot, and various other areas. So anywhere where there's rot, we'll be cutting all of that metal out and replacing it with new stuff. So yeah, new feet both sides, new bulkhead panels. I always try and find the slightly better quality bulkhead panels with the pressed reinforcing ribs in them. They look better. They're a better product. You can buy cheap flat panel repair sections, but the end product isn't as good. So we're trying to replace everything like for like, and yeah, any rot needs to be cut out and repaired.
Thanks for watching. For me now, the next on the job list is a baby is arriving in a couple of days, or at least we're hoping it is, otherwise it will be at Christmas. As always, if you've been enjoying the content we've got here, like and subscribe. Merry Christmas.